is Indian country today?
Esquili, yes. Thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Talahongva. How soon will the U.S. be reopened for business? As the president prepares to make an announcement today, there's division between states, cities, and tribes. In New Mexico, the mayor of Farmington wants to reopen the city at a 20% capacity. Yet the city borders the Navajo Nation, which has seen a rise in positive tests of the coronavirus. In Michigan, protesters are pushing the governor to reopen the state, and there are 12 federally recognized tribes in Michigan. None have any positive tests so far. For an update on the COVID-19 cases across Indian country, let's go to Jourdan Bennett-Begaye. Jourdan?
Yate Patty, Yate Shikes Doshe Dine. So the latest numbers as of April 15th in the Indian health system, there is a total of 1,266 positive confirmed cases, as well as 50 deaths within the Indian health system. And Navajo Nation did have an increase of 83 new cases yesterday, as well as an additional 5 more deaths. And within Choctaw, they also saw an additional 5 more cases in Choctaws in Oklahoma, and they also have another death, and now they have a total of 37 cases and 2 more deaths. But what's really striking is that Zuni Pueblo in New Mexico has now a total of 31 deaths right now too. So they had an increase of 7 more cases, and Zuni Pueblo is a extremely small community. They have, according to the 2010 census, about 6,300 individuals within their community. So there's also, Zuni Pueblo has cases, San Felipe now, and Zia Pueblo. And these are really small communities that are seeing these cases pop up within them.
And this is alarming because, again, we've been putting out the message, and CDC guidelines have said social distancing, but we observed yesterday that when many of the people in the Gallup, New Mexico area received their check from this CARES Act, they went into town and started shopping, and so there was a lot of activity in border towns.
Yes, and you often have individuals, going from one place to another place. Like one person, if they go to one grocery store and they can't find their essentials, they go to the next one. And if they can't find anything there, they go to the next one. That's 3 potential spots, but also it increases the chance, if they're asymptomatic, of spreading this virus around to people in these communities too. And it's even more so if they don't have a mask or they don't have, the materials to make a mask. So they're really, putting themselves in danger. And you have to think about, people have to do laundry too, and even going to laundry services within these border towns or in these tribal communities.
Yes, it is definitely something that we're watching across Indian country. And again, as we look at how cities and towns and states are starting to open up, or talking at least about opening up, that will be a question for tribal leadership. Because again, this weekend, the Navajo Nation is on lockdown. I believe another Sioux tribe is on lockdown.
Yeah, so Agala Sioux is actually just implemented a 14-day lockdown, but I think this just goes to show with these different like lockdowns, partial lockdowns, or curfews, these tribal nations are really exercising their sovereignty, and they do have the right to be their own public health authority, and so they get to implement these type of restrictions or guidelines in order to protect their tribal members. And that's something that Dean Seneca, who we talked to, who kept saying that tribes have a right to be their own public health authority.
And guiding their tribal members in how to take care of themselves during this pandemic. And it is unprecedented, for us in these modern times. And to see social media playing an impact on how we are going to get the message out.
Yes, no, definitely. And that's in Indian country today. That's how we are gathering these cases right now, is we're actively and going on social media, scrolling up and down. And we're also trying to encourage people to send us cases within their tribes, because again, there's not one database that for all tribal nations to put their data forward. IHS is trying to do the best that they can with their direct service facilities, and they're encouraging tribal health clinics in urban Indian health programs to submit this data, but not all of them do this. So Indian country today is can receive that information. You can email the Washington editor.
Okay, thank you so much, Jourdan Bennett-Begaye. We'll be right back.
This is Indian Country Today. This is Indian Country Today. This is Indian Country Today.
Welcome back. As we hear about the rise in positive case for COVID-19, and we see the numbers increase in Indian country, there's a lot of concern, of course, and fear that's coming through our communities. But we have to also remind ourselves that there are a number of people who actually survived the coronavirus. And today we have a guest with us, Vern Jefferson. And Vern is Meskwaki Indian. He is a survivor of COVID-19. Vern, thank you for joining us.
Hey, good morning, no problem.
Now, Vern is also on the Tribal Council for the Meskwaki Indian Nation, and he is a police officer as well. Vern is somebody who is a very good athlete. You run marathons. He was in the midst of training for an Ironman that was set to he was going to compete in June. And then in late March, you got hit by the coronavirus.
Yes, that was probably, I think my initial contact would have been probably March 19th. And how that happened is 3 of us officers had arrested a person. I wasn't able to get any more information, but he didn't look too good when he arrested him. We had our gloves on, but we weren't issued masks yet, as it was pretty new. And about 3 or 4 days later, I started a slight cough. I called in and told them, and they said, stay home. As well as the other 2 officers had also gotten tested positive for it, but their reaction to it was a lot lighter than what mine was.
That's interesting because, again, we don't know who, how it affects, everybody. So every case is individual. So your first symptoms were what?
I had a little tickle in my throat and a little cough, and it just progressed throughout the week. The 22nd through the 27th, I was at home. I went to the doctor on the 25th. They did a test. On Monday did a test. On Wednesday the 25th, I did a test at the hospital. Then the 28th, I was admitted into ICU, and I stayed in ICU for 8 days.
Wow. And during that time, before you even knew that your test was positive, you have a wife, you have 3 kids, all living in the house. Did you isolate from them? How did you handle that?
Yes, the kids would pop in once in a while, maybe once a day, just to see me. They had their little masks on. They're 2 and 4, and they'd come and say, hey, you'll be okay, Dad, and then run back out. So it was maybe 10 seconds or 15 seconds. My wife would come in and check my temp, and she had her mask on. So I was just isolated into one room by myself for the majority of the time.
Wow, that must have put a strain on your family. Because
Yeah,
you had you could see them, but you had no physical contact with them, right?
right. And also
Yeah.
with being admitted into ICU for 8 days, I probably had about 30 minutes, and it was two nurses, one for the day, one for the night, and probably 5 minutes each time they had all their PPE on, and it was just myself in a room for a majority of the time.
When you first got sick, did you think right away that you had the coronavirus, or did you think it was just, like a lot of people say, well, I just thought I had the flu?
For some reason, if I get the flu, it's kind of like a true man flu for me. So I'm really down and out. But with this, it was kind of the same thing. I was really down and out. My temperature was probably like 100.2, 100.3, around that. at home, but when I got to the hospital, it went up to 102.5, and they did a lot. It seemed like ibuprofen would really cause me to have a hard time breathing. So each time I would take that, it would cause my breathing was a lot harder to breathe than if I just took the Tylenol. If I took Tylenol, it helped keep my temperature down, and my breathing was fine. And I like to describe that. I don't like to describe it, but it was, if you get those workout bands and you put them around the middle of your chest until it pushes your chest in, just right below the middle of your chest. It was very hard to breathe. I had to take short breaths, and then the coughing would start, and I would fight so hard not to cough because the pain was so horrible. I had to take these short coughs and breathing, and I mean, there are times that I wasn't sure I was going to make it out, probably on Monday or Tuesday while I had my fever, and worrying about my family. How's everybody going to make it without me? I know we're not supposed to think that way. So, but I was so worried, like this is not good. And the doctor would come in and say, hey, I'm really happy that you're healthy, and you work out a lot. I could tell that you're athletic, and that's what's really helping you out right now. So, and then at one point I'm just like, I have to do this on my own. I have to get out. So I started doing my breathing exercises. I didn't eat for 6 or 7 days. So I started off with.
Did you lose your appetite?
Yes, I lost my appetite. And they say, I couldn't smell anything. I couldn't taste anything. So I was very weak. And one day I just had to get up and say, hey, I need to do this and work through it and fight it. So I had broth for like 2 days straight, doing our breathing exercises and a lot of praying. I had a lot of family praying. I got family up in Wisconsin and down in New Mexico. That there was a lot of people doing a lot of praying for me. Numerous people. People at the police department were, saying their prayers for me. Also, the police department, I really appreciated them. A family would bring a meal by every day to my family here at home, whether it be lasagna or spaghetti or the ready baked stuff that they drop off every day. And they wouldn't have contact. They would just leave it on the back grill, and my wife would come out and grab it and make it for their family. So that was very, very supportive. I mean, all the support that I had is really appreciated. I can't say enough about how much help I got.
So your communities really came together to support you and your family.
Yeah.
So while your family was eating good at home, you lost quite a bit of weight.
Yes, I lost 20 pounds. I came down 20 pounds. I still got this little extra chin here. So I was like I was weighing 218 when I came out of the hospital. I'm 220 now. So I'm trying to be healthy. I'm supposed to be on oxygen, but the doctor said if I can stay off of it to exercise my lungs, do that. I find if I'm off my oxygen the majority of the day at night, I get really tired and I sleep for about 12 hours. If I'm on oxygen for the majority of the day, I probably get like 8 hours. So it's still, my breathing is still hindered somewhat. And I haven't been to work since March 19th. And I don't know when I'm going to go back.
Now and when did you come home from the hospital? You spent those 8 days in ICU. And then how many days did you spend in the hospital after that?
I stayed in ICU the whole time. And then on April 4th is when they sent me home. I made it home for my birthday on April 5th. So that was
happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my goodness. And so you came home but you're still on oxygen.
Yes.
And that's
I use that sparingly because I try and work my lungs, but I tried to do a little too much the other day by carrying laundry up and down the stairs, and I was just check my oxygen level, and it was down to 87, 88, where they really want you on your own, like 97, 98, 99, which I'm used to. So I just sat down and started taking oxygen again.
That's really that really paints a picture, because again, you were someone who was preparing to do an Ironman, which includes swimming, um, cycling, and then running a full marathon at the end. And now you're having trouble walking up to your second floor in your home.
Yes, it's kind of depressing actually, because I'm not used to this. Being this week, I'm usually uh, I usually lift a lot. I go lifting a lot. I do running a lot. Do a lot of cardio. Got my bike and my at home workouts, and now just to walk up a flight of stairs and be short of oxygen or short of breath is really kind of a downer. Like, when can I get out of this? I need to get out of this, and I need to try and work, but at the same time, I need to listen to my body and realize I was really sick. So it might be that old man stubbornness that's trying to get to me about, hey, push yourself and get out in there and do the work. But at the same time, I can't. It's just really difficult for me.
Well, again, you know, it's important to talk to somebody who has survived and is still surviving. You're still recovering from COVID-19, and so, you know, it brings a lot of questions up in our families, because so many of us, and you mentioned this earlier, you know, we have these taboos against talking about death or planning or something. But you had some harsh realities to face, and that included having to look at a will.
Yes, you know, my mom always said, she's passed now, but my mom always said, thoughts become things. So you don't think like that, you don't talk like that. My dad's 89, so, and we kind of joke around like, hey, do you have all your things ready? He said, well, I'm not going anywhere soon. So he's doing, he's doing, he's doing good for his age.
Yeah.
So trying to have that positive attitude and maintain that positive attitude, I think, helps out a lot, because you can really get yourself down by trying to fight through this. So even like the healthiest people that, you know, I know, like I don't wish this on anyone at all. And for an elder to get it has to be so difficult and so painful for them to go through. And it's just a really trying time.
Yeah.
And I've never felt like this before. I've never had this kind of illness before, and it's just not. I take it lightly, and it's fine. And then I get it, and I'm like, wow, that was quite the experience.
Yeah. Well, the other part about just recovering and having that community surround you, you relied on some traditional ways to get you and your family through this.
Yes, my brother did a lot of, he came over and brought cedar over and smoked me and my family in the house. There's a tea that he made. We put food out. You know, I talked to my mom and I talked to my other brother who had passed. So just asking them for help. There's a lot of traditional prayer that was going on with a lot of my cousins that you know, hey, you know, they would call my wife, and my wife is non-native, and they would say we needed to know his Indian name, and so she would text me, and I'd text her back, and you know, she's been taking language classes for my tribe, so, and that helps her out a lot, talk and understand. So then she would give my Indian name to my cousins who put out some tobacco, and you know, and I really think that what really helped out was all the prayers and, you know, all the positive feedback that I got from everyone regarding the prayers. And it's just, like I said, I can't thank people enough for doing everything that they did during that time. Even now, people checking like, hey, take your time coming back. And I'm like, I need to get back, but I can't. I have to listen to my body and do what's right for me and my family, and take my time getting back. Not a spring chicken anymore, so I'm trying to listen to my body and get things done that way too.
Did you turn 49?
Yes.
On April 5th? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think you're still a spring chicken. Oh boy. You know, as we're reporting this about this coronavirus, in the whole message from the CDC and tribal leadership are, they're trying to continue that message and tell our people to social distance. And what does that mean? That means not going close to somebody, walking up, standing shoulder to shoulder, or even 2 feet. They were suggesting 6 feet or more to stand apart from people. And yet we're still not seeing that across the board. We're still seeing photos. We're still hearing about people not wearing a face covering when they go outside, or not practicing social distancing. And so the concern is that the virus will continue to spread because you don't have to show symptoms and yet still be contagious. What's your message to Indian country to get that word out so people don't get the virus like you did?
Well, I see a lot of, if it's on Facebook, it's true, but then you see the results of, people are saying, oh, more people die from the flu, more people die from this and that, according to the numbers. But with my experience, it's not, there's no way I would want anybody to ever get this. And I think it's really important that people kind of follow the rules because we want to keep each other safe or keep your family safe. Everybody has different degrees on what they go through, but it's really important to keep that shelter in place. And I believe our tribe has had our shelter in place since might have been the 27th of March. We shut down tribal operations, and I think the casino March 17th is when we closed those down because it was just nobody kind of really believed it, but it's really happening, and we want to keep everybody safe. And
Right.
it's real. It's not a joke.
How many tribal members in Meskwaki now have tested positive?
12.
12. And
So,
you have a small community there.
yes, we have about here in the local community, probably 13 or 1400.
Mm-hmm. So that's a concern when you're looking at if nobody socially distances and continues business as usual. Your family, your wife, she didn't get it. She's okay.
She thinks she got it, but she wasn't tested because initially they were testing essential people. So she said she had a tightness in her chest, a slight cough, and felt really tired for 3 or 4 days. And then one day she said she went to sleep and she said she kind of sweated out because she woke up really sweaty. And then she said, I got my energy back. I was fine. And so she said I would cough and I couldn't inhale that deep. So she was never tested, but we think that she might have had it.
And this was when you were in the hospital?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Dealing with, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that shows how, who knows if she had it, but it can affect people in different ways. And you mentioned the other officers who also were tested positive after you tested positive, and they had milder cases of the coronavirus.
Yes. We had one officer who just had tightness in her chest and coughing. And the other officer that we had, he said, I have high anxiety and I got stomach issues. So I talked to the doctors about that, and they said, yeah, some people get high blood pressure from it and have stomach issues. So it affects different people at varying degrees.
Yeah.
And for me to get this sick from it, like I said, I always get sick if I get the regular flu. So I don't know if that had something to do with it.
Yeah. Well, so now you're off work and you kind of have to have somebody write you that permission slip, right? To just say your job now is to recover and not rush back to work, whether it's the tribal council or whether it's the police department.
Right. And, the chief of police, I have about 43 officers that I work with in a population of a town about 30,000. So the police chief actually came down and sat with my wife. They weren't allowed in, but they sat outside at the ER when I first went in. So that was really nice of him to do. A lot of support there. He checks on me daily, and tells me not to worry about getting back. So they kind of joke around about it and say, you were the right person to get it for how much you work out and what you've been through before. So I don't know if and they joke around and say, hey, how many things you're going to test out? Because back in 2012, I was shot by a couple of bank robbers while on duty. So they joke around with me like, why did you have to do that? And why do you have to go through this? So I get a lot of support from a lot of officers there. We're really working together to try and.
Wow, sounds like you've had quite the career.
Yes. Yeah, it's been quite busy.
Well, Vern, Jefferson, we really want to say thank you for joining us and sharing your experience about going through the coronavirus and your journey through ICU, and now you're home with your family. Really appreciate you joining us and telling us your story. Continued recovery and be safe with your family.
Okay, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our newscast airs 4 p.m. Eastern Time on IndianCountryToday.com. Take care of yourself. Your life is precious. I'm Patty Talahongva. Esquili, thank you for joining us.
This is Indian Country Today.